In a world where good comics are made into bad movies, three nerds with their Overstreet price guides at the ready fight to educate you about the truth of the best comic book stories. The hour of comics is upon us with hosts John Seymour, Keith Bliss, and Jason Gurin.
What's his name anyway? His last name is something, right?
I
It's
don't remember, but it's George something.
it's Baptiste. Georges
Georges
Baptiste.
Baptiste, yes.
Baptiste.
No, so yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, so we're getting a bit of a taste of the panel here today. This is a fun one. Today we have well, first of all, I'm going to tell you what we're going to be talking about, and then I'll introduce the panel. So we're going to be talking about the first appearance of Wolverine, which happens over Hulk 180 through 182, but we're only going to be talking about 180 and 181 because 182, it's not really important. It's just about the whatever, the army base was disappointed with Wolverine, so they took him away.
They're like, do better.
And I guess he had something of a brain makeover because immediately after that he became Wolverine of the X-Men. So, anyway, so that's what we're going to be talking about, the first appearance of Wolverine and the story that happens around it. And here to help me talk about that, we have Keith Bliss. How are you, Keith?
I'm doing well, like always. Live at the beach, sun's out, can't complain.
Sun's out, buns out, right?
Heck no. I got pants on. Thank you very much.
Heck no. Well, yeah, we can't have the buns out. We don't want people getting blinded, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, so we also have Jason Gurin. How's it going, Jason? What does your shirt say? I'm sorry.
Nick.
Oh, it's snicked?
Yeah, the sound effect that Wolverine's claws make.
Come on.
Oh.
Dressed for the occasion.
Very
Damn
nice.
it, man.
Very nice. Very nice. And of course, we have our guest of the evening, Mr. DJ Nik. DJ Nik, how are you today?
Doing well. Aside from these soccer woes, doing all right. Glad to be hanging out with you guys.
I'm sorry to hear about your soccer woes. The NHL season is starting pretty soon, and I'm sure I'll have some woes, and I'm sure you'll also have some woes with your.
You won't have woes. I will. You guys will make it to the playoffs like easy peasy. We won't.
With your Canadians, if those of you who are listening are not familiar with the teams, I am a New Jersey Devils fan, and Nick is a Montreal Canadiens fan. So that should put things into perspective for you if you follow the NHL. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about, as I said, the first appearance of Wolverine and the things that happen around that first appearance. You guys ready for this?
Oh yeah.
You betcha.
All right. So Hulk 180. Hulk number 180 from 1974. Let's just get that out of the way too. Hulk lands on a farm, breaks some stuff, and pisses off some dude before making his way to Canada. I guess that's it's like he goes to Quebec, right? And that's why he meets the French people.
Correct. Yes, that would explain it.
Mm-hmm. So he makes his way to Canada, where he is immediately detected by the Canadian Air Force, which exists specifically to track the Hulk's whereabouts. This place is called Hulkbuster Base 1, and they want us to take it seriously. If there was an actual place, a real army base called the Hulkbuster Base 1, I would probably call the, I don't know, the people with the white coats, whatever that is. Anyway,
well, to be fair, they make reference that the Hulk had visited Canada in issue, I think it was like 170 or something like that. So this was in retaliation to all the destruction he caused during that first visit.
And it's Marvel in the 70s.
It's
True.
Also Marvel. And I guess to also be fair, this is a part that I don't really talk about because it's not really important to the story. There was one guy who was sort of recovering from a brain not goodness, and he was saying, "I want to meet the president, damn it."
But yeah, because this was collateral damage from that Hulk issue. That's right. Like, he's doing better since the accident. And you're like,
he's fine now. So anyway, they set into motion something called Weapon X. These people from Hulkbuster Base 1, they're like, get Weapon X ready. So Hulk finds solace in the Canadian wilderness, but soon becomes tormented by a voice calling his name. He's lured into a cave where he meets Marie Cartier and Georges Baptiste. You know what? It's just fun to say, Georges Baptiste. Marie's brother Paul was cursed to become a monster called the Wendigo, and she plans to do some voodoo magic shit to transfer the curse of the Wendigo to Hulk in order to free her brother. Georges makes no secret that he is against the idea, as it is completely unconscionable, but Marie doesn't care and only wants to save her brother. So Marie gives Hulk drugged food that knocks him out. She prepares her voodoo magic shit when Wendigo shows up, angering Hulk. Believing Marie to be his friend and Wendigo to be an enemy, he attacks the Wendigo. They get into a crazy fight that basically destroys the forest until the aforementioned Weapon X shows up, or as we know him, Wolverine. And that's part one. It's a really good cliffhanger, if especially if you have to consider you've never seen Wolverine before and you're like, oh, this is Weapon X. Let's see what happens next time. But let's go around the table one time to talk about opinions. Let's see. Jason.
Oh, yeah. Definitely enjoyed this one. This is a good pick. I've read 181 several times, but I've actually never gone back to read 180. So that was a first for me. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Almost wished I was alive back in the 70s to read that as it was coming out. I can only imagine just being a kid back then and seeing Weapon X Wolverine for the first time. Just the excitement, just building and waiting for that next issue must have been crazy back then.
All right, cool. And you, Keith?
It was interesting to see, his origins in, from this first appearance. I kind of chuckled a little bit because of the fact that when you see Wolverine jump on the panel, these giant swords for claws are on top of his hands, and they're like, those don't, like, obviously as the design has improved, they've refined it, but it was just very, I don't know, distracting to see these giant, like 6-foot long claws that are like each one the size of like 2 knuckles just on the top of his hands. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a thing that we're never really going to address or talk about. And then obviously it gets corrected later on down the line. But just to see that the first time was awesome, but then at the same time I chuckled a little bit. It was kind of weird to see the Hulk be very sympathetic almost to people. When he breaks that fence, the farmer yells at him and he apologizes. He's like, I'm sorry. And then he's like, wait a minute, stupid humans. And then like shoves him away. And you're like, so the Hulk can actually be empathetic, which we know he can, obviously, because we've seen him over the years, but especially now, so early on in his career in Marvel Comics, it was weird to see the different aspects of his personality, but cool at the same time, because it shows that he's not just the smash everything kind of Hulk that everybody expects him to be.
Nice. Yeah. No, I like the way that he was when he was like, wait a second, this guy is yelling at me and I'm just going to take it. And it's like, well, okay, to be fair, right. You landed on his fence. You scared off his horses. I think he has a right to be a little ticked off. But anyway,
did you laugh at the fact that he was mad that he's like, the Hulk smashed my $614.32 fence?
Yes,
and I was like,
yes, I did.
That was very specific and very
yes,
like.
Yes,
it was also funny that the Hulk wanted to fix it for a second. He was like, maybe I'll fix it. Maybe I'll help it stay out.
And of course, our guest, DJ Nik, you said that you had some stuff that you would like to say. So here's your chance, pal.
Well, I will say, who the hell is this Canadian messing up my Hulk issue? Seriously? I mean, I was kind of like wanting the Hulk story, and this random dude in a yellow suit shows up. So, but joking aside,
some stupid Canadian,
exactly, some random dude is like, I don't even need him. I'm following a Hulk story. Who the hell are you? But I enjoyed this story myself. I did like the fact that almost 4 years later after this, we get Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because the concept of this story does feel very Invasion of the Body Snatchers, of kind of placing an entity into somebody else, if you will. Well, heck, I recently rewatched Get Out, the film Get Out, and it's all about that. So it was like, wow, this is very coincidental and interesting that we get to discuss this. But yeah, great appearance when it came to Wolverine showing up. As Jason said, it would have been wonderful to go all the way back to the 70s, and this guy shows up and like, who is he? Where's he from? What's he all going to be about? So I did like it, and I also agree to Keith's point. It's nice that we saw some humanity, if you will, from the Hulk, and he's not just a raging monster. Also, we'll add that Len Wein, who wrote this story, is a very humorous writer, and I think that particular moment where the random guy from the farm is kind of yelling is very Len Wein. As in, rather than run away in terror, he's upset about his farm. As most people, if they see the Hulk kind of walking around, you're probably going to run for the hills. This guy stands his ground.
Like a 12-foot like building just landed on your fence, and he's like, "Hey, what's that all about?"
I guess further up north, people are used to crazy things happening, and so they're not as scared. I guess it's hard to say, but it is very Len Wein when it comes to that kind of humor. So I appreciate that. Also, I would like to add, fun fact, when it came to this particular issue, Wolverine is 2 inches taller than he would become later down the line, because here his height is given as 5'5", whereas in the future he'll be registered as 5'3".
Well,
all that adamantium made him shrink. He's old.
So. Yes, that's true. Well, I have to say I'm happy. I'm still just the slightest bit taller than Wolverine at 5'6", just the slightest bit. So,
it's adorable. I'm like a foot taller than him.
In both incarnations, 5'5" and 5'3", I'm still taller. He would still kill me with one swipe, but hey, you know what? At least he would have to reach up. So, yeah. As far as this story goes, for me, I thought like it's one of those funny things where it's like, oh, here, this is the first appearance of Wolverine, and we'll get into the second part of it as well, with my take on it. To me, the fact that it was the first appearance of Wolverine wasn't even really the highlight. It was really like the story was really good. I liked it. I liked the idea that this lady's brother was, possessed by this monster, and she's trying to be like, oh, well, he's a Hulk and he's very simple. And it's like, well, what's the ethics behind it? And this guy Zhuge is saying, really, that's terrible. It's a terrible thing that you're willing to do this to a person, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, when it comes to family, do you really follow ethics that closely, or do you justify it in the way that Marie is? Because I wouldn't be able to do something like that if it wasn't family. It was just like he needs his spirit back, but then I would have to do it to someone else. It's like the trolley philosophical thing where it's like, if you pull the lever, it'll only kill one person. Whereas, if you don't do anything, you'll kill 5 people. But, could you do it and say, okay, I'm actually directly responsible for this? So, we could get into that whole thing, but you get what I'm saying. That's why I like the story so much. It's really cool. It's got voodoo magic shit, and it's really great. So, anyway, Hulk 181, also 1974, the following month. So Wolverine, aka Weapon X, tries to kill Hulk, but this proves to be impossible, with his simplified plan of just stabbing him with his claws, or adamantium, or whatever, however you adamantium, pardon me. Realizing this, he successfully attacks Wendigo instead. The Hulk believes Wolverine to be helping him and says if Hulk's enemy is Little Man's enemy, then Little Man is Hulk's friend. He's probably said it with a much more gruff voice and very emphasizing. So, there is a whole the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's much more poetic than how Hulk said it, but he had the right idea, so that was cool. So Hulk helps Wolverine attack Wendigo, and they manage to knock him unconscious. Wolverine goes back to trying to kill Hulk, and the two fight until Marie uses some kind of chemical to knock them both out. Now, with Hulk and Wendigo both unconscious, Marie goes back to her voodoo magic shit and prepares to transfer Wendigo to Hulk so her brother Paul can be restored. Trouble is, now Hulk is turning back into Bruce Banner, and Zhuge refuses to help perform the voodoo magic shit on a human. So Bruce Banner wakes up and immediately turns back into Hulk. Wolverine also comes to, and they fight once again, scaring Marie off. Hulk delivers one final punch, which knocks Wolverine out again, and Wolverine is out for the count for the rest of the issue. Marie returns to the cave to find that Paul is back to his human form, and George has transferred the Wendigo to himself. He crashes through the cave wall and escapes into the forest. Marie is devastated, and Hulk tries to soothe her grief. And that is the end of part 2.
You missed the part where George says he did it because he loves her.
He did it because he loves her. I don't know. I didn't. Well, you know what? You know what? I'll tell you what, Keith. Why don't you go for it? Tell me all about the stuff.
The stuff and the things.
The stuff and the things.
Just that. It's just as he regresses, he's like, "I did it for love," and then punches a wall and runs away. You're like,
because I love you.
I love you. But again, this does show that the whole softer side of the Hulk, where he does actually come up to her, even though she did try, doing all this crazy shit to him. He's still like, "Hulk, sorry."
I left that part.
Little furry human.
I also left that part out where he actually discovers that she was trying to basically fuck him over and says, "You're not Hulk's friend."
I like how he referred to her as like fur woman or fur human or something stupid. He's like, because
she was wearing the whatever, like that fox skin thing.
Yes,
the horns.
The horns and this everything. Well, I did appreciate, all things being considered, that this took place during the course of 2 issues and like 400 ads, because every other page in the comic book was an ad for something or other.
Yep.
I will say it was actually a surprisingly complete story for a first introduction of Wolverine, even though it does technically continue on one more issue and they, show a little bit more of him for what they were trying to accomplish. And even, her motives, while flawed, I can't really, knock her for it too much. Granted, the end result was really kind of messed up because she didn't realize, and I don't think many people at this point had realized, that Hulk had a human form or a non-Hulk form. So for her, it's just, this is the Hulk. I'm going to, curse him with the Wendigo, which I don't know why you'd make the strongest being in the universe stronger and even more immortal than he already was. So just to, make matters worse, it was like gasoline to fire. But, the road to hell is paved to good intentions kind of scenario. Like, I got her motives. I understood it. I'm not agreeing with them. But the fact of the matter is, like, she's the reason why the Hulk's in Canada. She was trying to save her brother, again, going about it the wrong way. But, at the end of the day, George steps up and does the right thing and kind of takes that curse upon himself. And she even brings that up, that, he owes her and her brother this immeasurable debt that he could never repay, blah, blah, blah. And between his guilt and everything else that's actually transpired just the course of this issue, he takes the curse upon himself. And the chemical that you're referring to that knocked out the Hulk and Wolverine was another one of her magic potions, sort of like they had at the beginning of the one issue. And one of the word bubbles had said something to the effect that, she hadn't perfected her knockout potion yet. So this, I guess, was the perfected knockout portion. I can't say it. Knockout potion. Yeah, see that 5 times fast.
Yeah.
It was, so it, again, was it perfect? No. Was it good for when it was written? 100%. Do I enjoy it? 100%. Are there flaws? There's flaws with every comic book.
60%.
Yeah, 60% of the time, it's 100% accurate.
Yes. Yes.
Do I recommend it for anybody? Yes. If you're a Wolverine fan, 100%. Check these 2 out. If you can get a reprint, if somehow you magically can find an original, more power to you. But I would read these stories if you're a Hulk and Wolverine fan, because this is their first true encounter. And it kind of shows you Wolverine before the X-Men days and just him actually being a true Weapon X or part of, Department H, which was the Canadian, version of the Avengers.
Yeah, if you can get original copies and like
I've seen them.
And well, I've seen a lot of stuff that is, worth a lot of money, but I've never bought a lot of stuff that's worth a lot of money. I mean, okay, a car and whatever, fine, but not a comic book or a, inverted Jenny stamp. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that Hulk 180, an original copy, is like a couple $100, whereas 181 is like in the multiple thousands. So, that's, you can see like what fans actually want as opposed to what's just there as the first appearance of Wolverine.
There's so many fans arguing about this, John.
Oh,
So
yeah.
many.
They all
consider
yeah.
that last panel to be the true first
absolutely.
and 180 should be the one.
And so Nick, what are your thoughts on part 2?
Well, I will say, other than the origin of Wolverine, we also got the origin of Wendigo as well, because Georges Baptiste would go on to be the Wendigo for the longest time, and would actually be an antagonist in future stories to folks like the X-Men, for example, especially, and others. So we kind of got two origin stories at once, if you will, between Wolverine and Wendigo, which I thought was kind of cool. When it comes to, I guess, the ethical things that you were alluding to earlier, John, I think it's true, because I guess when you are driven to desperation to cure somebody of a malady, and you're literally at your wit's end, you might be drawn to unorthodox and possibly unethical methods in order to cure said malady. And I think that's what Marie's deal is granted, maybe I don't necessarily agree with it, but I almost wonder if I found myself in that situation where a sibling of mine was suffering from something incurable. Like the Hulk, he's like a monster, right? He doesn't have any feelings or anything. He'll be fine. At least, I'll get my brother back. But I do like that it poses that ethical question of, when you are driven to desperation, what are you prepared to do? And you go completely crazy and you do all these kind of incantations and what have you in order for that to happen, to save your brother on one hand. And on the other, I mean, Georges is very selfless when it comes to the choice that he makes. Granted, he professes his love to Marie, but at the same time, it shows like what you're prepared to do for love of a sibling, and what you're prepared to do if you actually love somebody. As in Georges being in love with Marie, he reacts the way he does, and he's prepared to sacrifice his own life, if you will, or human life, to embrace this terrible thing that is the Wendigo. And like I said, he will be cursed by it for quite a while. So it was. I also agree with Keith. It was a fitting end to our little story, and I definitely appreciated that. And hey, it was kind of cool that Hulk knocked Wolverine out, because between Team Wolverine and Team Hulk, I'll always be Team Hulk. So I'm like, that's what you get. So I was kind of happy.
Well, it's also, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the only reason Wolverine only got knocked out rather than killed was because he like kind of dodged a direct punch and like got hit from the side, and that knocked him out and didn't kill him, right? So yeah.
Well, plus he has an adamantium skull, so that's unbreakable. Yeah,
it's okay.
But this is before they really kind of like dove into the whole his mutant healing and blah 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 blah. You just saw this dude with 9-foot claws coming out of his hands.
Yeah,
right.
And I will say, Nick and I were talking about this. Was it yesterday? We were referencing how the fact that Wolverine couldn't break his skin, and they literally were like the first panel. He's like, "Damn it, I can't hurt him. Let me go attack the Wendigo." And you're like, so it was kind of cool to actually see him make reference to the fact that his unbreakable bones cannot actually break the skin of the Hulk.
And I will also add, you do get Wolverine's perspective of this story in Wolverine Origins later down the line, comic book wise.
True, you
do. I saw that, and I intend to read that. So I'm curious to see how that is, and I look forward to reading it. In the meantime, Jason, your thoughts on part 2?
Well, as a self-professed Wolverine fan on this side of it, not on the Hulk side, I've read so many Hulk over the years, but it was just great getting all these nuggets, like from the writer standpoint, of just introducing just enough to make a mystery out of this character. Where we learn this mystery with the whole Department H. He's known as Weapon X. We call him Wolverine. The adamantium bones and everything, or covering his bones. But just as far as been reading for so much longer past that, you just got to think like the writers must have had such a great time with this character after he came out. Like they got just enough nuggets from this issue, and now they're going to be able to expand so much on this character over the years. And they gave us enough in this issue to make you think, all right, having read everything now, obviously we know where it's gone, but you're like, oh, this is what's going to happen next. But is it? It was just so I just really enjoyed all the nuggets they dropped.
Nice. Well, there is a reason that I am so interested in doing first appearance episodes, and it's because, like, these are characters that are so popular, that have been popular for decades and decades, and the first appearance, and I'm talking about 180 as well as 181, because 180 you didn't really, you saw that Hulk was Weapon X and that was all you knew about him. But in first appearances, there is no frame of reference. There's nothing to compare it to. So it's like, this is all I'm getting for at least a month. This is what I know about Wolverine or Spider-Man or Batman, Superman, like whatever it is, it's the first appearance. And that's all I know. And that's why I'm like, okay, it can go in any number of directions. And you wonder, like, is it going to be popular? Is it not? Obviously, it becomes popular. And that's why first appearances are so sought after, original copies. So there's one. Two, to add to Nik's philosophy about like what you would do, justifications that you would make for a family member and whatnot. I'm always, with this kind of thing, reminded of the Pet Sematary plot, where it's like the guy's son dies, or in the remake, the guy's daughter dies, and
or the remake.
The remake.
Yeah, they're making another one.
Oh, that's a prequel though. That's not
there's a TV series coming out, Pet Sematary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That sounds fun. I would watch that. So anyway,
the son's dead. Shock.
Well, the son's dead. Fine, yeah. Well, someone has to be dead so they can bring him back to life from in the Indian burial ground. But getting back to the point is that when a family member dies, son, daughter, sister, father, whatever, wife, is it ethical to bring them to the Indian burial ground and bring them back to life? It's like, what are the arguments for it? What are the arguments against it? And it seems like every time, if you are not personally invested in it, the argument is against it. So the only reason that you would actually do it is because it's personally important to you, not because it can actually be justified. And I love that kind of thing. I love that kind of philosophy where they say, oh, Hulk is just a big beast of a monster. And I can't transfer the Wendigo into a bird, I guess. I don't know. So
kind of like, through the consequences, we're going to just go with what works for me.
Exactly. So yeah, that's
I want to see a Wendigo bird now. That's just an amazing image.
I mean, it seems to me that no matter what you transfer the Wendigo to, it's just going to be the Wendigo.
I would have liked to see the Wendigo Hulk. There should be a what if on that one if there hasn't been already.
Well, if you think about it, Sasquatch is kind of like a Wendigo Hulk. Because
don't they all look and act the same? They just like, it's a person's.
There's an alpha of them eventually.
Yeah.
What if this Cartier was successful? I want to see that issue.
All right. So let's go around one more time and talk about whether 180 or 181 was in fact the first appearance of Wolverine. Now, I'll go first because whatever, it's going to be a short round table unless you have a really long description, which is fine. I think that 180 is the first appearance. 181 is the first story. 180 is the first appearance. But Nik, what do you have to say about it?
No, I totally agree with you. I would say 180 is the debut. I mean, granted, okay, we get Wolverine right at the end, but it still counts that he's right there. So yes, if you want to, kind of keep score, folks, I would definitely say Wolverine debuts in Incredible Hulk 180, not 181.
Keith?
I'm going to agree with you just for the sheer fact that, unrelated, but when the Batman Who Laughs first appeared, it was in Teen Titans, and they consider that the first appearance, even though it was literally a single panel. So I'm going to go with that logic. Like, if you see him on page, that's a first appearance.
And Jason?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everybody calls this cameo, but it's not like we just saw his leg or an arm. I mean, we saw the whole thing. I mean, he was there.
It's a full body appearance, and he talks in it. So, I mean, what more do you want, right? And just for the record, Marvel Cards from 1990 agrees that 180 is the first appearance. And so there's that. Any closing thoughts from anyone? No? All right, well, let's just go on to plugs. Let's see, Nick, where can people find you?
Well, folks, if you are fans of country music, you can find me at my day job on the Whiskey and Cigarettes show, where we play today's country, traditional country, and everything else in between. For more info about that, you can visit our website, which is whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Podcast-wise, you can find myself and the wonderful Keith Bliss on Happiness and Darkness, a superhero movie podcast. We discuss all superhero movies under the sun. And last but certainly not least, myself, Rachel Friend, and Zan Sprouse can be found on Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast. We're reviewing all the best picture-winning movies in chronological order. Next week, we'll be taking on 12 Years a Slave, which I'm kind of dragging my feet about for obvious reasons. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
All right. Keith?
I have no plugs because DJ Nik and I are on the same podcast. So, I mean,
Nick plugged the same thing.
Exactly.
There.
So,
all right.
There you go.
So we can go right over to Jason.
Yep. You guys can find me on Facebook, Jason Gurin, Gurin. Come join Comic Book Villains on there. And if you're looking for a comic book store in Long Island, hit up Best Comics in New Hyde Park.
All right. For me, John Seymour, JON space SEYMOUR. I am no longer sitting at a drum set. I am standing by a door holding up a piece of paper wearing a Fantastic Four shirt. And the piece of paper says first day of grad school. It's meant to be a joke. A lot of people don't get it, but that's fine. That makes it even funnier in itself. So that's me on Facebook. Find me also on my other podcast, Bullshit Hour with John Seymour. And if you want to email into the show.
That'd be amazing.
That'd be amazing.
We should have this be a live call-in show that
Please.
That no one would listen to or whatever. But anyways, if you want to email into the show, the hour of comics is upon us. It's just how it sounds. You know how to spell all those words. If I sit here and spell it out for you, we'll be here all night. The hour of comics is upon us at gmail.com. Tell me your ideas. Tell me if you want to be on the show. Tell me anything that you like about it. I love to receive emails. So, yeah, and I guess with that, I will say good night, DJ Nik, good night, Keith, and good night, Jason, and we will see you next time.